We are officially live on Facebook right now. So thank you so much for taking your time and being here today, Shravani. I know it's a Friday. I know there's so many other things you could be
Yes.
doing right now, but you're here raising awareness for mental health within your
Mm-hmm.
community and globally via this platform. So we
Yeah.
really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I love Reach Out Together. I have been following it for many years, and I've seen the journey. I think it's incredible what you guys are doing. Your passion to keep at it is something that I really admire. I think a lot of people midway just let it go, and they're like, "Oh, we're not seeing results, whatever. Let's just get this over with and get back to our corporate jobs." And I'm honestly, what you've done over the past many years is super admirable. So kudos to you guys on continuing the efforts.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's honestly not just a one person effort. This is a
Mm-hmm.
team effort. Everything we do is, with the team, and it's been so incredible to see us slowly and steadily. It's been a very slow process, but
Yeah.
it's been one that's been worth it. With every
Mm-hmm.
event we host, with every little discussion, when
Yes.
we are able to hear feedback from people that this discussion made a difference, this event made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
When people reach out to us and ask us, hey, do you know anywhere we can go for therapy? Are there any resources you can suggest?
Mm-hmm.
This just goes to show that these events and these discussions work. What we're doing is the right thing. We're on the right path. We just need to
Mm-hmm.
continue the effort. And I know we will make an immense difference in the world. And we're just really appreciative of you being here, being a really young woman entrepreneur, which we'll get to. I'm really excited to share your journey with our viewers. But before
Mm-hmm.
we get to that, let's officially begin our first episode of 2021.
Yes.
This is amazing. And we have Shavni with us on our very first episode of this year. Today is episode 43 of our mental health impact series. It's a funny story, actually. We restarted this program
Mm-hmm.
during the lockdown last year
Oh, wow.
because we noticed the number of people that were reaching out to us. We're a
Mm-hmm.
grassroots initiative, a grassroots mental health non-for-profit. And the
Yes.
outreach that we noticed, and just given what was happening in the world, it just made sense for us to restart this where we're providing a platform for, normal everyday people to just talk about mental health,
Mm-hmm.
mental well-being, mental
Yeah.
illness, and what do you do in order to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Success doesn't need to look like financial gains. It could be well-being. It could be how we're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think today's topic is very important. Today, Shravani and I were going to talk about the importance of creating a mental health toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's the beginning of the year, I hope this adds value to all the viewers. And if you stick around till the very end of this discussion, we have a little gift for you. So stay tuned, ask questions, and engage. We're here for you. Having said that, welcome on board, Shravani. Could you please start with sharing a little bit about yourself? In a
Yeah.
way, the journey that has brought you here to talk
Mm-hmm.
about mental health today.
Yeah, for sure. So just a little bit about myself, just personally, I was born in India, but I grew up in Singapore and then spent about 5 or 6 years in Toronto, and then now I'm here in Seattle in the United States. So it's been a lot of moving around, and I'm a self-proclaimed global citizen. I love introducing myself as one. I think
Yeah.
the fact that I've experienced so many cultures and sort of been born in a different one, but then grew up in a different one, and now identify with a random third culture is just so exciting to me. And I think it's really important that you do that, or at least interact with people that do that, just because you get a really different sense of perspective on some really common topics that we can think about in our life. And so From there, I mean, in Canada was an amazing time. I love Toronto. It's home to me still, even though I'm in Seattle living with my parents. But
Mhm.
Canada seems to be home. And so as I moved from Singapore, I went to university, and then I started coming across a whole bunch of different stereotypes and prejudices. And I think it was a part of me coming back from, or coming out of my cocoon and my comforted life,
Okay.
of being grown up with my parents as well. And this was my first time
Yeah.
being independent in a new country, and figuring things out by myself, and not too old, super young, and
Yeah.
making my own mistakes and learning from it. And so what I realized though was that people carry prejudices and stereotypes with them, and that is really affected by pop culture, which then makes it really negative. And then these negative connotations just keep traveling from one part of your life into another. And so you just become this bubble of just carrying stereotypes. And as I did my undergrad in psychology, I realized that that's how your brain compartmentalizes things, is by creating these groups and blocks. And we think of these blocks in later on in life as prejudices, because that's how we start looking at things. And so when I
Yeah.
started traveling to the US, I felt that the culture was sort of similar, in the sense that people looked at you as the other, being a person of color. And so I kind of designed a jacket for myself, and then that's what led to my social enterprise Chain Spark. So I feel like a lot of my moving around and a lot of the experiences that I've gained in my young life, I would say I am not too old, so I wouldn't want to say in my life so far, but I feel
Yeah.
like all of those led to me really taking it in my own hands. And I think young professionals, or the younger, yeah, the youth is really taking things on themselves to make that change that is much needed in this world. And so
Yeah.
we're a part of it. And I feel like the reason I started a social enterprise and not really a business was because I felt the need to really make giving back and creating that social impact as much more important than actually becoming successful, right? And success, like you said, could be anything, right? But when you make a
Yeah.
community successful along with you, I think that's what truly, that's how I define success, when people around me grow and are empowered with me. So that's what led to Chain Spark. And so Chain Spark is a social enterprise. That's how I just define it. And we're trying to create a social and cultural shift in the mindset of people through our various different initiatives. So our first one is advocacy through fashion, where we use our denim jackets to raise awareness about racism, colorism, shadeism, and pet harm and animal abuse. So we ethically source our jackets. That was also an important part. Our supplier implements really high strict standards of working conditions. We make sure there's no child labor, considering we get our jackets from India. And
Mhm.
we've continued, we acknowledge that denim is not the most environmentally conscious fabric, which is why we've kept it at limited edition. So once our quantity is done, we're not going to be doing any more denim. And so that's what we're doing right now. And then we're soon launching another initiative called Culture Spark, where we're going to
Mhm.
use different media outlets to raise awareness about different cultures. And that'll be through comic strips and podcasts and video interviews and those kind of things. So 2021 is looking interesting for us, and I'm super excited about it.
Look at this, team. Look at everybody who's watching this. Look at how a young woman entrepreneur is just moving forward regardless of what is happening in the world. And this is why I wanted to bring her on board. Shavni, for the young girls that are watching this or will come back and rewatch this, could you share what inspired you or what encouraged you to
Mhm.
pursue something like this, given everything you had been through? You mentioned that you were living in Singapore, then you moved to Canada, then US, and
Mhm.
you noticed a lot of different ways of treating people in different cultures.
Yeah.
And you used your experiences and
Mhm.
you try to help make a difference in the
Mhm.
world using something that didn't necessarily make you feel very good. How did you do that? What inspired you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Acknowledging 100% privilege in my life. having
Mhm.
supportive parents, and the opportunity to really travel and be an international student in a country. I think a part of that has been this encouragement from my parents, to be very honest. I think the
Yeah.
push and the belief that they have in me is so incredible. A lot of the South Asian communities should definitely, I feel, it's like the fact that a lot of South Asian communities don't still continue discouraging their daughters from really taking on their ambitions and goals is really disheartening to me, considering I come from a family of really strong women in my house. My mom's owned a business, my grandmoms have owned a business, my great grandmom was a lawyer. So, we come from a lineage of like really strong women in the family. And I feel like really
Amazing.
that has sort of led to this empowerment in me where I'm like, I've seen them make a change. My grandmom is a lawyer in India, and she quit her practice because she saw the corruption in the system. So it's really interesting to kind of identify what everything that's going around you, and not following the trend, but trying to see what really irritates you and how you want to make things better. I feel like that's
Yeah.
what really drives me. I'm not okay to settle down on things. I don't want to settle down on things if they don't make sense to me. I want to change it. I want people around me to be comfortable. I want them to be happy. I want them to continue their whatever vision they have of themselves, and not mooch off of their work, but also, work with them. So I feel like that has sort of been a very driving force for me. And I've seen that around in my family or my friends. We all socially woke, like-minded people that I surround myself with. Just I feel like give me that energy every day to really keep at it. I think it's so important to make sure that you visualize something, a perfect world. I don't think there's any harm in trying to make that happen. So I always go on with this where I'm like, visualize it and then just make it happen. There's no harm working towards something even though you're not making money from it.
Yeah. We just have a question here from someone viewing. What
Mhm.
at what age did you get started with this business?
I started at 22.
So you
Um,
were still in university at that time?
I was just out of my university, just out of my undergrad. Yeah.
That's pretty good, Shravani.
Yeah, it was honestly, I think my courses, so I did an undergrad in psychology, and then I did a major in health policy. And I think the coursework that I learned as well, and the sort of projects and assignments that I was doing really helped me identify these areas of interest for me personally. And I felt
Mhm.
like when I took a lot of courses at the Scarborough campus in Toronto, and
Okay.
we used to go and personally see some areas which were food deserts, which just didn't have any nutritional stores around. And these were migrant communities, and we almost started thinking of it as ghettos of people which were non-white. And I just felt like, why is there this difference? And I think, again, it was me coming from my bubble of comfort where I was given everything that I wanted, and now suddenly
Hmm.
coming into this world where I was like, okay, this is crazy. But also I felt like there are so many things and so many people out there that are really doing the work that are it's just hidden, these hidden warriors that are doing so
Yeah.
much work, that I felt like maybe partnering with them and really working together is going to help us reach that the larger goal. I mean, I keep reminding people that the sustainable developmental goals are just 9 years away now, and we haven't done much. So I feel
Hmm.
like every step that we're taking to work towards that is just so important. And so that's what we really tried. That's how I really try, and my team really tries to do with all of our initiatives at Spark.
Sounds like you have so much going for you, Shafni, and it's so amazing to hear that your parents are supportive and encouraging of
Mhm.
you to keep going and make a difference, really. One thing I really liked that you mentioned was how you acknowledged that you're coming like privilege. You mentioned this right in the beginning, and you
Yeah.
acknowledge that. But even though you had come from that place of acknowledgement, you also understand that because you had everything given to you, when you were facing the real world, things became challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the reality of the world. This is what happens a lot of times within families where, there's privilege, the children are brought up and given a lot of things that parents necessarily didn't have themselves.
Yeah.
And when the children grow up, they find themselves struggling
Mm-hmm.
to maintain the daily lifestyle
Yeah.
when they're on. And so, what advice would you give certain people who are in similar shoes, who are in probably similar shoes as you?
Yeah, I think, understanding that all of us have these intersectional identities is so important. I think personally acknowledging privilege is really necessary in today's world. We can't keep ourselves on the same pedestal as everyone else if we don't know where they truly come from and what sort of background they have or what they're even facing on a day-to-day basis. I feel like making blank assumptions is so last year, and we need to sort of move on from just making blank prejudice assumptions about people. When you feel like you're in a state of privilege and you can do something to empower someone that's not from a similar background, I feel like you should do it. I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't. Coming out of that mindset of, I think a lot of consumers I've seen are also becoming a lot more conscious about what they're buying. And that's
Yeah.
also, and I think that's also because they acknowledge their own privilege. They acknowledge that they come from a level of maybe a social hierarchy, a socioeconomic hierarchy, which where they can make a difference through maybe, and it's as simple as maybe just buying from a small business. It's someone that's really believed in their own goals and has started a coffee shop, maybe even. So
Yeah.
maybe move away from buying that Starbucks for a day and just buy a coffee from a small business. I feel like that could bring a smile to the small business owner's face. I think a lot of the people that I work with on ChainSpark, we're all people of color. And so
Okay.
we also acknowledge our privilege at every step. But what I've said is, make sure that you continue on this vision. So not just in the work that you're doing, but also in your day-to-day living. If you really are doing social impact work, I think you should continue doing that in any small step that you can take as well. So I think continuing it and keeping the consistency while acknowledging you come from a background and a level of support that maybe your parents give you from a level of privilege is so important.
But do you feel like, this is just me keeping it real, right? Do you feel like, Shravani, that a lot of young individuals understand that they acknowledge that they are at a place of privilege,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still struggling?
For
Does that
sure.
make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also because you're now, I feel like probably till 19, 20, you're still okay with living with this idea that you can actually get that support you've been receiving all your life. But beyond
Mm-hmm.
maybe 25 or something, I feel as you enter the mid, like the quarter life crisis, which a lot of people face, I think that the quarter life crisis is coming to terms with the fact that you feel awkward to ask your maybe these support systems for
Yeah.
things. And then it's fine trying to navigate the space of awkwardness is also so important, because you almost start feeling like you're in it alone, and you're like, well, I don't want to ask anybody, or I just don't feel like, maybe, or and this constant comparison of maybe your friend that's probably doing a little better than you are. I think there are all of these random spaces that you're trying to navigate by yourself, while also adulting,
Yeah.
while maybe having a serious boyfriend that you're thinking about from a long-term perspective, and you're like, I don't know. Or maybe just being like, I'm in a long distance for like so long, what's going to happen with me? So I feel like as you grow up, there are a lot of different navigations that you have to do with your own life. um
Okay.
and I think, I feel like I was reading the post that you guys put up, yeah, a couple of days back, about really self-awareness and importance about it. Really trying to answer those questions about, why am I feeling this way, why am I not doing this, or basic questions like, why is the world a shitty place to live in, or why was 2020 bad? I think these questions that you may not necessarily have answers to, but I think asking those questions is probably the most important step. Ask
Yeah.
yourself, why am I feeling this way, or why is why was my coffee crappy yesterday? Something as small as that. Like, really bringing about that awareness among yourself might
Yeah.
actually help you. I mean, privilege or no privilege, at some point, you're a human being with all of these intersectional identities. I think you need to begin with first asking yourself questions. When the Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter movement started in the United States last year, me and
Mm-hmm.
my team, we went through periods of anger, frustration, irritation and helplessness about like what's happening around us and why has it been going on for so many years, and just trying to navigate that space, and just taking a step out of it and being like, maybe we need to actually take a week off to really assess how we feel, is the first step that we need to take when we are feeling these range of emotions. So I
Yeah.
think that self-awareness is probably also really important when you're really trying to get older, grow up, and I mean, you're just in your mid 20s or late 20s. You have an amazing life ahead of us. So we shouldn't
Oh,
be wrecking ourselves over smaller things right now, but instead assess it. And I think asking those questions personally has been
yeah.
really important for me. I take some time off, journal, and write why I'm feeling it. And it's oftentimes I've noticed it's just questions. It may not have answers, but I'm okay with it. I'm
Yeah.
okay with the questions because that means I've actually tried to dig a little deep into why my week has been bad or why it's been good. But at least it's just a series of questions that I'm trying to understand and live with.
Oh, I love this. I love this discussion. You go, Shravani. This is a go-getter right here. We have a couple of questions. Thank you so much for sharing them here. Before we get into the questions, the topic for today is the importance of having a mental health toolkit. Now, what does
Hmm.
that mean? A mental health toolkit is something that helps each one of us when we're simply not feeling mentally well, or we're just not feeling okay. We may have feelings of anxiety, we're just feeling restless, we're just not feeling okay, right? And so I think this is a great way to segue into that, into this question that someone has asked. What is something you'd say to someone who faces issue who faces issues that they were talking about, people who don't know how to start to help themselves? So, what advice would you give someone who doesn't know how to take the first step? Like, what is that first step in helping themselves?
Yeah, I think I think most often you don't realize you need help. But and so that's when you really should just make this a
Self
habit,
awareness.
right? You should just make it a habit to maybe spend 5 minutes a day, maybe if maybe not even writing, but just typing out on your phone how your day went. Like I've been obsessed with these self-guided journals, and they really have a really nice structured way of what am I grateful for, just one word or maybe a sentence, and what am I going to achieve tomorrow, and what was the one thing that I liked and disliked in today. And it could be as small as I didn't like what I ate for lunch, or something as small as I don't know why my friends are being weird. I don't know why my boss is not helping me out. I think that is a really big thing that young professionals struggle with in today's world, is a toxic boss relationship. And most often we don't realize that we're just okay with these situations because we need the job, we need to make that money. We just have to pay our rent, and very often very, I mean, I haven't heard too many of my friends be like, I love this job, I love my boss, I love what I'm doing. And that's okay. And I think acknowledging that that's fine, because you may not love your boss, but you love the apartment you live in, and your boss is, your job is helping you pay for it. So I think moving away from this mindset of I don't love my boss, but I love the job, because I'm able to live in this apartment that I love, or because I'm able to get the dog that I love, or the clothes that I'm wearing. I think
Yeah,
celebrating every small win is super important according to me. So even
yeah,
if you don't know you need help, or maybe you actually don't need help, I think it's just a good practice to really write your wins and your losses every single day, just so you're able to, at the end of the week, you can really look back and maybe assess and see, is there a pattern that I'm noticing? Are there too many negatives that I'm noticing? And why are there too many negatives? Should I really be looking into this? And then maybe seeking out and getting some professional help would be great. But I feel like find your pattern, find what you're doing and
Yeah.
see if the pattern's working for you or not.
Guys, if you're tuned in, this right here that she just dropped, this was a mic drop statement. This is very, very valuable. Understanding that pattern, taking that time, writing it down, seeing if there's something in common that's triggering whatever it is that you're feeling. And once again, I really want to encourage you to take notes, take some time to become self-aware. You can, like Shravani mentioned, she viewed one of our posters on self-awareness, which just made her start to think. And this is something she has been doing. But again, it was a plan, a seed that she saw somewhere, right? That ended up growing in her mind. Like in that way, I want to encourage you to go to our Instagram page or our Facebook page and view this content. We post one educational poster every single Tuesday. We want to encourage everyone to understand what's going on within themselves. And when you're aware of what's happening, what works for you, then you can move ahead towards recovery. Then you can put things in your routine that's going to sustain well-being, right? Yeah. Because then you're going to say no to things that are not making you feel good. You're going to say yes to things that are bringing you joy. And that's the importance of creating that toolkit. For Shavni here, she journals and she talks positively to herself, about herself. What were the other things that you say you do is a part of your mental health toolkit?
Yeah, so I think journaling is definitely one. Self-talk. I felt like over the last year, when it was a crappy year, for the lack of better word, I realized that a lot of people around you don't mind listening to your frustrations and your sob stories. They don't always want to hear the happy things. And it's okay to be a community of sobbers and people that are whining to each other. It's fine. Like you whine to your friend, whine to your parents, whine to your your boyfriend or your loved ones, whoever it is. It's totally fine. Do it. If those people don't want to hear it the next time, there's always another person. Catch hold of them.
Yeah.
What I've realized is when you keep telling people I'm good, things are going well, you're just keeping it at very surface level. And so what I started doing last year was I actually started asking questions like, hey, instead of asking them how their day was or how they're doing, I would just be like, what was the one amazing thing you did today? Or did you sleep too much today? Why did you sleep too much? Or like, have you just been feeling lazy? Because I have been feeling super lazy these past couple of days. I think sharing that, even small details of your life like that, are really important, because someone out there might actually resonate with you and might be like, I actually am feeling the same way that you are. And that might just become a conversation about like why you're feeling that way, what you can do together, maybe hold each other accountable for things, and really help one another, sort of what I'm going with right now. But I realized whenever I would ask my friends things like, how's it going, it was always good, or like the usual boring stuff. It was really like blank statements. But when I actually got into deeper discussions about my boss is acting crappy today, this is what happened, this was a small incident, do you feel the same way about your work situation? So ending your rant about a question that might actually force the other person to tell you, could actually be a good tactic that you could use to really get the discussion going about how you're truly feeling about the situation you're in.
Yeah. And for everyone else that's tuned in, we really want to encourage you to share. You can call it a rant, call it complaining, call it sharing. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're expressing. You either express or you depress. This is something we keep mentioning, we keep repeating, because it's very true. You have to find your own avenue to express, right? And a lot of times, if you don't have the right support system around you, like Shravani, that's what she goes to. She goes to the immediate support system around her. And if they're not having a good day, or they're the ones that are not, I guess, making her feel like she's being heard, then she'll move on and she'll find someone else that does, right? And that's resilience in its own way. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Reject rejection and find people that make you feel the sunshine when you don't feel
Mm-hmm.
it yourself. Because there
Yeah.
are people like that in the world that want to share some of their light. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to encourage you to be relentless in your pursuit of well being. Because if you're not mentally well, you're not feeling good, I know that people around you who care for you are not feeling good too,
Yeah.
right? And so we want to encourage you to think about yourself, what works for you, what brings you joy. And from there, start to create your toolkit. Write down what activities make you feel good. Is it
Mm-hmm.
drawing, sketching? Is it going for a walk? Is it going for a run? Is it working out? Is it singing like Beyonce? What is it, right? I have
Yeah.
my own kit. I actually have 10 things that I've written down.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a gratitude jar.
Oh,
This
wow.
jar is something that I maintained for 21 days for an exercise that Reach Out Together actually put out. We had
Mm-hmm.
around 40 team members in it. And for 21 days, we wrote down one thing we're grateful for. Until today, I use that jar and I'll take out random chits from it when I'm just not feeling good. And,
Mm-hmm.
without realizing it, when I'm reading it, I smile. And that's
Yeah.
the power of putting yourself in gratitude, in that space of gratitude, right?
Yeah.
If you have any other questions, please share. We have one person that has asked us a question here, actually, two
Mm-hmm.
questions. How could we possibly speak to our close ones without them maybe pulling away from us or feeling attacked? This is in terms of someone who is, for example, mentally not feeling very good and
Mm-hmm.
they haven't been feeling good, perhaps, or they're trying to share or communicate with their support system, person who's, very close to them, someone they love, care for. So, how could we possibly talk to close ones, sharing things with them, with the ensuring that they don't pull away from us or they don't feel like we are attacking them, because it's not about them, it's about us and how we're feeling.
Yeah.
Do you have
Mm-hmm.
any tips for that?
Personally, I have when that's happened, and I think sometimes when I have some doubts about whatever I'm feeling, I tend to be like, is this really important? Do I really have to share this? And I think, so I feel like that is the first step you shouldn't do. When you feel like, is it really worth asking this? Is it really worth sharing this? I don't think that should ever come in your head. I feel like anything you're feeling is valid, and you those are your feelings. But at the same time, what I've also noticed is that there are some people that are not as approachable as some others are. But in those
Yeah,
cases, you always have some other applications, to be very honest. If you feel like there are some things that you just can't talk to your close friends about, or you don't want to feel like you are invading their space, or if you're invading too much, or what they would perceive of what you're trying to ask them. um, i
yeah,
have I have seen that there are a lot of applications like these buddies that really talk to you, and help you sort of navigate your feelings. I feel like sometimes having this sounding board that doesn't have any idea of who you are or any prejudice of who you are can actually be a much more helpful tool than reaching out to that support system, because you really get some raw opinions
true.
and some raw sounding advice from them, because they just don't know who you are. They don't know what your background's like, where you come from, where you live. And I feel like sometimes doing that is also a good step to take.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
If you know me, you know that I love my community. I have a massive, and I love getting to know more people, especially people that, remotely care about making a difference and adding a little
Mhm.
bit of value in the world. Those are my kind of people. But still, I still prefer, at least when it comes to a support system, to maintain my sanity with everything that I do. I prefer talking to a therapist. And I'm going to be
Yeah.
very honest with you. It took me time.
Hmm.
It took me time. I started Reach Out Together because I lost my twin brother to an undetected mental illness. He was
Mm-hmm.
undiagnosed. Um, this year would be 5 years since his passing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it took me about 6 months to realize that I had started to host events in the world and I was doing like amazing work. But what about my well-being while I'm trying to help
Mm-hmm.
other people reach out for professional help, reach out for other supports? What about me? Right? If I
Mm-hmm.
want to continue to do this, I need to make sure that I too have some mind space. And
Yeah.
so I actually became relentless in my
Mm-hmm.
pursuit of well-being. I talked to some people in my network, my friends, my community, but I realized that they are not mental health trained professionals. In
Yeah.
fact, I realized that the more I was sharing with them and the more upset I was getting that they wouldn't understand what I was trying to share with them, the more frustrating it was feeling. And then I actually reached out to someone in my network and I asked them, I told them, I need help. I'm not feeling
Mm-hmm.
very good. I just want to talk to someone. And it was
Mm-hmm.
actually my friend who ended up doing the research, find me a bunch of links, bunch of resources. And that's when I reached out. But I had someone who did due diligence and find resources for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never looked back. I
Yeah.
don't know why I was resisting it. I have no clue.
Mm-hmm.
Like talking to someone that I don't know has probably been the best thing that has happened to me. I've continued to do things, and I'm sure you too, like you have been doing very well. You keep going. You're really making a difference in the world, Shravani. I want you to know that. You're showing up. It's so inspiring for people to see you keep going. It
Mm-hmm.
makes people want to try again. And that's beautiful to me.
Thanks. No, I personally feel like, I mean, I follow this motto quite a bit, which one of my now mentors has told me is show up. Just show up
Yeah.
for anything.
Just show up.
That's the first step you need to take. You can be in the most uncomfortable situations, but just show up, whatever it means, whatever it takes. That's the first
Yeah.
step. And then you know what? You'll figure it out from that point on. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. That those few words just keep ringing in my ears is just to show up. Um,
Yeah.
show up anywhere. If it's a protest that you don't care about, just show up. That one extra person might actually create some difference. if you
Oh,
feel
that's
like
beautiful.
if you feel like you're living in a community that has largely seniors living in it, show up, ask them, and see if you can get them groceries because there's a pandemic going on. Just do
Yeah.
it. You know what I feel like these days, what I've started doing is I just do it. I don't think too
Yeah.
much. I just if I feel like doing it, I'll just do it. I'll face the repercussions and the consequences, but I just don't want to live with the regret and the guilt of not doing it. So I just weirdly have now been I mean, this is something a little bit out of my comfort zone where I'm like doing a lot of lives and those kind of things. I feel like this is my new thing. Just don't be behind the scenes and don't stay behind the curtains. Show up, do it. What's the worst that can happen? Your story will relate to
Yeah.
someone that might be in the same boat. There might be that one person that might listen to this and be like, you know what, I feel like I'm feeling the same thing. And so don't limit yourself from sharing your stories, because I'm sure, I mean, look at the population of the world. There has to be that one person that feels the same way
Yeah.
as you do. And imagine if that one person's actually watching you at that point, talking about your story, and maybe that person's inspired to do something. So just show up and just do it. I think
Yeah.
Nike has been telling us that for a while, and I've now taken
Yeah.
it on myself to do it finally. uh
Just do it.
just do it. But yeah, I mean, your story can be an inspiration for someone, so just share it. I mean, there's no harm in that.
Oh, so well said. Just show up. I can't stress enough of how many times I have just told myself, I don't care how you're feeling, you're going to show up. That's just me
Yeah.
talking to myself. Like, I don't care what you're feeling. Feelings aren't you. I am not
Mm-hmm.
my feelings. Feelings come and go, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to show up. And this is me talking to myself whenever I work out.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
show up. I don't care whether you're feeling it or not. You're going to do it. And every single time I leave feeling good. And this is
Yeah.
not just for fitness, it's
Hmm.
also for wellness. For example, sometimes when you have an appointment with a therapist, you go like, oh, I'm having a good week, I'm having a good month. I
Yeah.
don't really need this. And you brush it off. But if you actually show up,
Yeah.
like if you were feeling 75%, you're going to end up feeling 95 to 99 to 100%, right? But
Hmm.
it's up to you to actually show up. And when I'm feeling 100%, I'm just giving a lot more because I'm feeling good.
Yeah. And this negative connotation we have around going to a therapist, um, I feel like we need to get away from that. That's the first step we need to acknowledge is although a therapist is, could be a doctor, and maybe, you're thinking of it from that way, but at the same time, you know what, it's literally could be a sounding board for your joys and for your sorrows and for everything, and it's just this one extra random person that gets to hear your perspective and how you're truly feeling about things, and
Yeah.
help you navigate it. Don't look at it from a way of this person's helping me figure out life. No, they're just helping you navigate your own life. You're figuring
Yeah.
out your life. So I think you the fact that people feel like they don't have control over what they're doing or feeling when they start visiting a therapist is, I feel like, a myth. I feel like a therapist is just that person that's maneuvering the path for you, making a
Yeah.
few blocks out, or maybe creating that beautiful roadway, but you're still very much in control of everything you're doing. So you're not losing control of what you want to do or what you feel, but it's just someone that's helping you feel about things the way you actually truly want to feel about it. So
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
I mean, I'm a big mental health advocate. I keep telling my friends and family there's no shame in going and visiting a therapist. In university, we had free counseling, and I'm not ashamed to say I took full advantage of that, figuring
Good. It's
out.
part of your tuition.
Yeah, yeah, that also,
Very
right?
good. Yeah.
And so, just literally going in and sharing stories about why you're maybe not getting along with your roommates, all the way from
Hmm.
that to how you feel like, your parents have put in so much. And I think as South Asians, we have this feeling of like, it's almost on the borderline of gratefulness and being thankful about how much your community supports you.
Yeah.
But I think sharing about that is also important, because you don't know when that slowly becomes a burden. So I think, and I honestly don't see too many South Asians seeking help, and it really hurts me deeply when they don't seek help, because I think we are trying to figure out way too many things on our own. Like, we should not be doing that. um
Yeah.
People, or think about it this way, people pay us to do our job. So if I'm a program manager somewhere, people's going to pay me to manage that. Why should I not pay someone when it's their profession to help me figure out things in my life?
Yeah.
Maybe you're also creating economies of parallel economies in your own life by actually going to a therapist and seeking help. So if you want to look at it that way, that's also another way to look at it. I'm creating business and employment for other therapists by seeking help. If you don't
Yeah.
truly feel
Absolutely.
like I need it and that's why I'm reaching out, I think a lot of different people feel like there's something wrong with me, or I'm a weak-minded individual where I just have to go and seek help. And I think that's the opposite. I think you're courageous
Yeah.
and you're strong when you actually acknowledge that you need help to figure out what's going on in your life and with your emotions at that moment. So don't look at it. It's the opposite of being timid and weak, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. I salute people that pursue any help when they need it. Because I
Hmm.
think often when we need help, when we resist help, is when we continue to stay in that place where we're not progressing. There's no
Yeah.
growth. So I
Hmm.
completely agree. And just to add to that, I know we're a little overboard on our time here on this interview, but it's a good discussion.
Hmm.
Um, I just want to encourage you that if you are going to therapy and you feel like it's not working, is it culturally inclined? I
Hmm.
just want you to think about that. For me, I changed 4 therapists till I found someone that I actually really liked, like, because our energy levels were high. When we would meet, it was like a different energy in the whole space I was in. And
Hmm.
I think she was more culturally inclined to where she understood my upbringing, my background. Why are things the way they are, or why my thought process is the way it is? And I think that made a really big difference. And that's why I want to encourage everyone else that's watching this. When you are looking for therapists, first of all, feel free to reach out to us, my team, resource at reachouttogether.com. We have a team dedicated to just doing research for you and sending you links for online therapy, online counseling, or even in person. Like, we have a dedicated team that does research and will send you resources that will help you. So that's what I wanted to tell you. And this is completely free of cost. We're a non-for-profit. We're here to help support you and guide you to help. But if you feel like the help that you are pursuing and it doesn't help you, change it. Don't stop the good habit. It's like, it's like hiring a fitness instructor, really, because you want to get fit. You want to work on something, a physical attribute or physical thing on your body. And you have a physical instructor. This instructor is not telling you or giving you any advice on nutrition, isn't giving you advice on how to improve your posture. You're probably going to change this instructor because this instructor is not helping you meet your goal. It's very similar. If you have a therapist, write down what your goal is for your mental health. How do you want to feel? Right. And if this therapist is not helping you get there, change them. Change them. And having said that, wanted to ask you our last question from our audience, just because we're running out of time. And the last question here is, did you really have to push yourself when you got started with journaling, or was it something that came naturally?
No, I had to push myself. I journaled for a few days, and then I was like, you know what, it's fine. I mean, it's not doing much, but I felt like, again, it's trying to find the pattern of things, which is why I just kept pushing myself. And at a point, I mean, I used to do this as a kid. I always thought of it as, I used to do this as a child, the Dear Diary, which was in fashion back then. And I used to do it religiously every single day. Every single day, I would write about like everything. I would hide it so my parents wouldn't find it ever. Write about my crushes. I like this boy. Oh, my friend is being weird. I don't like the food my mom's giving me to, I don't know, whatever. And I felt like maybe that contributed to just how I was so okay with everything that was happening. Maybe that played a role in it. And it would sort of take me back to that point. And then as I was journaling, I then started incorporating the Dear Diary as an adult. And it feels interesting. I felt like it was such a fun experience because it was almost like, the sixth grade Shravani on her bunk bed, like writing Dear Diary and then putting a lock on her diary and then hiding it under the pillow. I felt like it sort of took me back to that time, and that kept pushing me to really write more. But yeah, definitely, I feel like getting into any habit. And I think it was probably, again, another Reach Out Together resource where I saw that you need a certain number of days to make that a habit. And like the continuity of that is continuity of those many days is what's important. But it gets, I mean, at some point you just get into a habit of doing it. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be writing in the same piece of a journal. It can just be on a folder on your phone. It can be a note section on your phone, just writing out maybe 5 things. Now, although I will admit that I haven't been regular with journaling, but when I really feel a gush of emotions, the first thing I do is write out everything that I'm feeling. And 2020 was, for us, personally, a difficult year as well, with some family things going on in our extended family. And so I felt like, as I was trying to figure out what I could do being so far away and how I could actually feel being so far away, I actually spent 1 full week just journaling everything that I felt. And it was in the form of poems, it was in the form of trying to rhyme words, it was in the form of a full page of questions of like, why is this happening? When is this going to stop? How do we make things better? And with just no answers. And at the end, I remember that page very, I don't know, it just stuck in the back of my head. But I actually remember at the end of the page, I'm like, there are no answers to this, but hopefully we will have answers soon. And I felt
Yeah.
like that's still fine, as it's okay to not have answers as long as you're questioning things and as long as you're still trying to see why you're feeling that way. It's still okay, because honestly that night I slept pretty well, I won't lie. I felt
Uh-huh.
like instead of just keeping it in my head and thinking about it and taking up my entire day just thinking about it, I
Yeah.
slept well. The next day I felt a little fresh. It was another perspective. And so keep pushing yourself, but also it's fine if you don't, it shouldn't be an annoying thing where you're like, oh, I have to journal every day. There could be periods of like gushing emotions in your body and head and how you feel, and that's the day you maybe write a book on something. But do it, use it as a way to let your feelings out in any which way you can.
We love her. We're going to bring you back on our show for sure. Hopefully, when we are able to host these in person again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. No, I feel, I think it takes courage to be raw and real, and that's the one thing I really appreciate about North America, is that you can talk to a stranger on a flight about how your boyfriend is not as nice, or how your coworker is not helping you on a project, or how you're having a fun girls trip in Miami, and
Yeah.
these strangers are going to join in on whichever emotion you're feeling, and they're going to give you their two pieces of advice. And that's something that we don't see in our South Asian cultures too much, where we're also rigid and have this like notion of what people around us think of us. And so you
Mhm.
learn so much. There are negatives and positives of every culture, and so sometimes talking to the stranger is helpful, sometimes talking to a friend is helpful, but just continue talking. And that's just what I would continue that's what I continue doing. I think I tell everyone in my family as well. I keep telling my parents, and it's fun because I did a minor in psychology to
Yeah.
tell them to prioritize their mental health over anything else, because everything is connected. It's the same thing. It's it's crazy to think that you have statistics in the world that tell you these are your cardiovascular problems, and this is diabetes, and this is cancer, and blah blah blah, but there isn't substantive data on mental health problems, because it's just such a complex issue. And so what can you do about something so complex is just keep at it, like just keep speaking up, keep doing, and keep following Reach Out Together
Yeah.
for all of the amazing work that they're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Very good discussion today. Very insightful. Thank you so much for being very authentic and real. To wrap this up, Shavni, what is the one message, a message of hope that you would like to leave the audience with? Perhaps someone that's tuned in, they're not feeling very good today.
Yeah, it's that emotions keep coming in and going out. Learn to acknowledge them, respect them, keep them as emotions. They don't really define what you are. Share your story. You have a lot of short stories to share. There are people that are in the same boat as you. Just keep sharing your stories. And I think being vocal about things is is one thing that we should try to do in 2021. 2020 was everything that could go wrong, and we became aware, and now we're rising from that. So let's continue rising up in all of 2021, and let's elevate ourselves, and just be more vocal, and just put yourself out there. And like my mentor said, show up. Just show up. Just show up to anything. Show up to the next live, show up to another webinar, just show up. That might be a fun and inspiring for you in some way.
That's beautiful, team. Show up. Show up. I love it. Do you know what our logo stands for?
It's isn't it is it ASL for together?
Yes, it is. Good job. So, for everyone else that's tuned in, if you don't know, now you know. This is our logo. It's two fists put together. And in American Sign Language, this represents together. We use the color orange around our logo because orange in color healing therapy, it brings out feelings of warmth and happiness. And our goal at Reach Out Together is to heal the world together, conversation by conversation, person by person, community by community. And that's exactly what we did here today. So thank you so much, Shravani, for sharing your time, being a part of social change in this space. Your message made a difference. I know it made a difference for me, for sure. I know it made a difference for Risha, who's on the back end helping us facilitate this session. So we really appreciate you being here.
That's awesome. No, thank you for having me. It's been amazing. It's bringing your authentic self out. Sometimes it's fun.
Oh, love it. For the rest of you tuned in, if you have a story to share, or if you are a mental health professional that would like to share your wisdom, please, please, please reach out to my team at event@reachouttogether.com. We want to help spread your message if it's a good fit, and we'll take it from there. And for the rest of you that's still tuned in from the very beginning to the end, I promised you a little gift. And that is, I published a book called Success Strategies earlier in 2020, beginning of 2020. So it's going to be 1 year very, very soon, in about 2 weeks. It's called Success Strategy. And I actually became Amazon's best-selling author in 2 categories within 24 hours of launch. My excerpt won Editor's Choice Award from the publishing company. And I was recently nominated for an award for my write-up. And I want to offer you this copy completely free of cost, a digital copy. So if you send me an email at ancho@reachouttogether.com, I am going to make sure to send you a digital copy of my excerpt. And I know it's going to make a difference for you. This is a new year. What I want for you is to start this new year understanding your purpose and being in tune with your purpose, being in tune with your destiny. And sometimes we need to keep reevaluating what our destiny is. And that's what this chapter is about. So I can guarantee you it's going to help you in some way or the other. Send me that email and take your gift for 2021. This is a wrap for our first interview of this year. Thanks, Shravani, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye now.